Today is on slope-intercept form. So if you remember when we talked about this, we found our slope or our rate of change. Finding slope is fun. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So now that comes back into play with what we're doing today. So you need to remember this formula. Oops, let me get this. Our formula here. We're going to be using that formula. We also need to remember that m represents our slope. So slope is represented by m. And then another one of our vocabulary words is this word intercept. We're specifically this year looking for our y-intercept. Next year you'll deal with both x and y-intercept, but this year we're only looking for our y-intercept. And intercept or y-intercept is going to be represented by the letter B. So we're going to be using this form, which is slope-intercept form, which means we need to find our slope and our y-intercept, and we can write an equation of a line. Next year, you'll deal with other forms, but this year, we're introducing you to all linear forms that are written in slope-intercept form. So your equation for this form is y equals mx plus b. I've listed underneath here what these letters represent, and we'll deal more with them as we get into functions. But the things you need to know right now is that we are replacing our m and our b in this equation. We have to find those two things. So our m is our slope, our rate of change, our rise over our run, our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and our b is where our graphed line is going to intercept or cross our y-axis. So those are the two things that we're going to be replacing. We just plug them into the formula or our equation here in this form, and then we will be able to graph that line. So we're going to have two different ones. We're going to learn how to write an equation from a graph, and we're going to learn how to write an equation from points, or in this case, a table. You won't do points till next year, but this is what we're going to do. So the first thing we're going to look at is we're going to find our graphed line. And I'm just going to trace it right here. So that is my graphed line. Maybe not perfect, but good enough. So this right here is my graphed line. We're looking at step number 1 says find the y-intercept. Again, intercept is where it's crossing. I want to know, where does this line that I've just highlighted in blue cross my y-axis? I'm looking for where it crosses my y-axis. So I'm looking for where it crosses the y-axis. This is represented by the letter B. So when I do this, my y-axis, I'm looking for this point right here where it crosses the y-axis. So that's at 1, 2. That means that B, or my beginning point, my y-intercept is 2. Then I need to find my rate of change, or my slope, or in this case, it's my letter M for the graphed line. Again, our slope is rise over run. We've worked on this for a few days now. So I have 1 point. I need 2 points in order to find the slope, or the rate of change. There's one there. There's one there, there's one there, and there's one there. So I've graphed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points. Out of those 5, I need 2, and it does not matter which 2 I have. I do need to remember that slope dude is walking down, so my slope is negative, so I can't forget that. So I'm going to have m equals. So slope dude's walking, da 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 da. I know that's good sound effects. He walks right here. And he needs to get to his friend's house, but he has to take the detour around the block. He walked down 1 and to the right 2, meaning 1 over 2. So that's step 2, is to find your slope. Find your y-intercept, find your slope, and now we're going to plug them into our equation. We do not miss y. We're only trying to find our m and our b. So my slope, my m, was negative 1/2. Your x right here can go out to the side of a fraction or on top, but it cannot go on the bottom. Because if x is a 0 and it's on the bottom, you're going to get that divide by 0 error, which means it's undefined. So you have to make sure you put it out to the side or on top, but never on the bottom. And then our b is where did this line intercept or cross that y-axis? Well, it crossed. My y value when it crosses is at 2. And this is the equation of that line right there. So again, we need two things. Our slope, which we've been working with, and now all we're looking for is where does this line cross my y-axis? And it crossed it at 2. The other form they're going to give you is in table form. So it's going to look like this. And in table form, it just requires a little bit more work. It's not hard, it just requires more work. So first thing we're going to do is still find our y-intercept, which is still b. We need to find the y value when x equals 0. And the reason we're looking for that is because if you remember, anything graphed on our y-axis means that we never moved left or right because it's 0, and then we went either up or we went down. So that's why we're looking for where x equals 0. So I look down my x's, and I have x equals 0 right here. So when x is 0, I need my y value, which is 6. So this right here is b. So I'm going to write right here, b equals 6. Step number 2 is find our rate of change. Rate of change finding slope, or m, is fun. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Rate of change finding slope is fun. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. As you look at this, you can see I have 1, 2, 3 ordered pairs to choose from. I only need 2 of them. You can pick whichever 2 you want. Walker rule, so my rule says if there's a 0, I'm picking that. Some of you just start and pick the first 2. You're like, Miss Walker, I just like to pick the first 2. Perfect, pick the first 2. So then I'm going to plug these in. I'm going to label this one y2. So that means wherever I see a y2, I'm replacing it with 10. Use a different color here. So I replace y2 with 10, which means this is my y1. These were my y values, and I've selected this y and this y. So 10 minus 6. Since I started with 10, I have to start with the x value that was attached to it, which was 1, and then minus 0. Now, you're going to plug it right in your calculator. You're going to hit your fraction key. On the top of your fraction, you're going to type in 10 minus 6. On the bottom, you're going to type in 1 minus 0. Your answer is going to come out as 4. I'm going to put it over 1 just so you remember, rise 4, run 1. But it's 4 is your final answer. So now we have our m here, and we have our b up here at the top. And now we plug them into our equation. We remember our equation is y equals mx plus b. So this means y equals, I found my m, which was 4, or 4 over 1, x plus my b, which was 6. What this means is if we were to graph these points, they would connect and make a line, and that line would cross through 6 on my y-axis, and to get to all these points, we would count up 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1. Up 4, over 1. So it's going to be a pretty steep line. So again, slope-intercept form, we're finding slope and y-intercept, plugging it back into our equation.